Welcome to week 7 of our course. We're getting close to that final week next week. This week we turn our attention to the healthcare system. And there are a lot of folks around UIC here and across the U.S. that are doing research that is focused on the contribution of the healthcare system to health disparities. I think in general you can break health disparity researchers into two different camps. There's the one camp that tends to focus primarily on the impact of the healthcare system upon health disparities. So these are the groups of folks that look at people can't access healthcare, or people are going to the emergency room to serve as their primary healthcare provider. People are looking at the different quality of care that people are getting and how that's contributing to health disparities. So for example, in asthma, can the people get access to their long-term medications, or are they only getting access to the quick relief albuterol, those kind of things? Can they get an asthma action plan? In addition, other things related to the healthcare system, for example, if a man and a woman go to the doctor and they're complaining of chest pain, what often happens is that the man will be worked up for heart disease. But the woman is much less likely to be worked up for heart disease, because what oftentimes physicians think is that you're just stressed, you're just overworked. So this is, and I don't want to, in substance, it's sex-based differences in how care is provided. I don't want to necessarily say it's sexism. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But men and women presenting with similar signs and symptoms may get treated differently, worked up differently. So there are a lot of different factors. Also, there's a big literature on age. And at what point do people presenting with the same symptoms, an older person versus a younger person, get encouraged to go down different pathways, perhaps less aggressive treatment, things like that. So these are all factors that might be considered in disparities. An assumption that somebody with limited education may not want to go on insulin. So even though this person really might use insulin for their diabetes, we make the assumption without talking to them that that's not something they're going to be interested in. Other factors related to the healthcare system, we know when new technologies come out that the hospitals that adopt those new technologies, perhaps imaging technologies, are the wealthier hospitals. The community hospitals that tend to be in the more distressed neighborhoods, they're not the first ones to get the newest and greatest MRI or the newest and greatest digital mammography. And those access to the different types of technology can really impact then the time at which diseases are diagnosed and the treatment and the subsequent outcomes. So that's just one whole area of health disparities, is really focusing upon the provision of healthcare, access to healthcare, quality of healthcare. Then there's the other group of health disparities researchers who tend to think by the time you have to interact with the healthcare system, everything's been set into motion anyway. The health disparities are already there, and you're just at a later stage. So they tend to be more focused upon the community factors that are going on, exposure to violence, exposure to stress, how adverse childhood events, we know, results in worse health as an adult. We don't know why, but those kind of factors, environmental things that get embodied and then impact health adversely. Those are not very clear distinctions, but you will notice that probably you guys out there, some of you may fall into one or the other camp. They're just different ways of looking at things. People certainly look at both of those areas too. One of your readings this week is the unequal treatment. This, when it came out, was a really, really progressive report that reviewed the literature. It's an Institute of Medicine report that reviewed the literature on the healthcare side of things and really opened people's eyes to the fact that there is discrimination. There is unequal treatment being doled out by our healthcare system. And I remember at the time when it came out, talking to a good friend of mine who is a maternal fetal medicine physician, and he actually was really insulted by this. And he was a man who really was very committed to working with underserved populations as well as well-to-do populations, but really was very, he was an informed and enlightened physician. And he took this as a personal attack and was just unbelievable that, they really think that we're discriminating in the care we provide. So this report now is sort of old hat. You may not experience it the way that he did and many other people did when it came out, but at the time it came out, it was almost heresy in some circles that we're critically looking at the healthcare system and writing about how we're not being fair in the way we do things. So in that, it's a really interesting report. I believe I've asked you to focus on Chapter 2. However, for those of you who are interested in the medical history, there's this wonderful chapter in there, I just love it, that talks about the history of medical education and how historically, early on, people got their medical degrees by going to these night school programs, and then folks who were of anything different about you, be it a different religion than Protestants, obviously a person of color was absolutely excluded, so then you had African American medical colleges emerging, and it's a really interesting chapter for any of you that are interested in that. But Chapter 2 is the one I just want you to focus on, but do take a bit of time and look at the other chapters to see if anything's of interest to you there. And again this week, I know this for some of you, it may be a really easy thing to do, and that is to write up 1 or 2 pages thinking about formulating the different ways that the healthcare system, broadly speaking, might be impacting the health disparity or the health issue that you're interested in focusing upon for your paper. Now, this week, it very well may be that this assignment may not end up being in your final project if you're not thinking about actually developing an intervention that interacts with the healthcare system. But I want you to try to think of how, and if you're focusing on a group of folks instead of a healthcare disease in specific, to think about different factors within the healthcare system that might be important or contributing to that outcome. Don't just think about it's like, well, I'm focusing on folks that don't have insurance, so the fact that they don't have insurance is the problem. But well, what about that? That's a very complex thing. Try to unpack it. Try to think about if that's too general. Probably none of you are really focusing on that. But try to unpack it and think about these different avenues. Again, is it they can't get quality care, that they're having to go to hospitals that are overwhelmed with need? And is it that they can't get the primary care? Is it a transportation problem that's challenging there? Is it that the time of day that clinic hours are open is not available to them? There are free clinics in Chicago. I've referred numerous people there. There are barriers there. Do some exploration. You have to show your tax forms or have a letter from somebody that says you don't make money, and people don't want to do that. So there are a lot of barriers to entering into the healthcare system. Think about that. Think about that in terms of your area of interest, and please write up a paper, page or 2, that just outlines what you think might be important at this level of the healthcare system in terms of contributing to those health disparities, even if the health disparity is something that the person's already, it's set into motion before they get there. I hope that's clear. If that is at all confusing, I ask you refer to the posting on Blackboard with your course assignment, and you can always email me or give me a call. Next week, again, is your final project. For those of you who want to post it by Wednesday, I would be more than happy to read over those and give it back to you with comments so that you could then again integrate them and post it by Sunday. Don't feel like you need to do that. Just any of you that want to go that extra step. If some of you plan on applying for a grant and feel really invested, like you want to get that posted, get feedback, and make those changes, that's just something that I'm willing to do. You have to have it posted by Wednesday night, though. If it's posted after that, then I'll just give you the feedback at the end of that. Good luck with all of this. And again, I hope you enjoyed the readings this week. Thanks.